All right, you asked for it, guys. This is your follow-up to the naturally aspirated small block Ford base timing map build, for Foxbody, where we tried to kind of simulate what Ford did from the factory. So this is the supercharged version of that. We're going to build a basic timing map, and it's going to be a little different because obviously, the factory Foxbody was never, there was no, Ford tune for supercharger because they were never boosted. If you want to try to figure out kind of the bottom half of your timing map, go back and watch that video because all that stuff sort of applies up until you get to about 100 kPa and, before you climb up an inner boost. But this video is going to talk about how to scale the maps appropriately for your amount of boost. Show you a couple tricks there, and then how to kind of get the top end of your timing map sorted out. So, first thing we're going to do is open up the stock global file that Holley provides here for a Ford small block supercharged. And you can see how funky this stuff is. Okay, so here's your timing map. And the immediate observation that really bothers me here is how little tuning resolution you have for a massive change in boost, and how much tuning resolution they give you for all the areas where you're not under boost. Something else I want to show you guys, you might not know about this, but you notice how my map in this video is actually showing in terms of boost instead of kPa. You can toggle that in your toolbox preferences. You can check this box on and off and do it either way. So by default, that's off. You're going to see this stuff in kPa. Turn it back on, you can look at it in boost. So I'm going to leave it on kPa for now, but I will toggle it back to boost later. So the thing to know about this, again, that frustrates me is like the way Holley kind of seems to do this stuff is once you go in and you tell it which map sensor you're using, they will sort of create some kind of pre-scaled table for you based on that, but it never seems to make any damn sense whatsoever. So just know that you really need to spend your time on that first. So what I would recommend is this. Let's say you're going to run, let's just go with the real cookie cutter setup, right? Like a Vortec, maybe with like a power pipe and kind of a moderate pulley on a Foxbody. So you're probably going to run somewhere between like 9 and 12 pounds of boost. Just real cookie cutter stuff. And, a lot of guys, when you're picking out your map sensor, since the internal, one bar that comes inside of the Holley computer can't measure boost, you're obviously having to go buy something. Lots of options out there. And the most common stuff that I see is people going to like a 3-bar and 4-bar. I see some 2.5 bar stuff out there occasionally. There's also like some 5-bar offerings and whatnot, but it seems like 3 and 4 bar are going to be the most common. And inevitably, what you're going to end up with when you kind of get the out-of-the-box scaling for that is you have numbers that go all the way up to the very top of whatever that sensor's capable of reading. And if you've got like a 4-bar map, you're not coming anywhere close to that under peak boost with a simple Vortec or something like that. So it's really not going to make sense to fill so many rows up here with things that you'll never touch, because again, let me flip back over to doing this based on your boost. You can basically see right there, there's your 12 psi row, so that would be about the peak you would hit, and that means you only have 4 rows in this entire tuning table for your boosted area. It's ridiculous. So what you want to do is you want to strategically kill some of these bottom rows and sort of reduce the number of those that you have. You want to kill some of these excessive rows up here. Not all of them. You do want to leave yourself a little bit of padding. We'll talk more about that in a minute, but you need to trim that down, and you need to expand the number of rows that you have in your usable boost range so that you can actually get some tuning done. Another thing that I would always recommend too with any boosted application is having one of your rows at exactly 100 kPa zero boost. That way you have like just a nice flat solid baseline right there, and then you can start climbing up with boost. Now what I'm going to do is, and you can just click in here and you can change these numbers to whatever you want. The big thing is, you have to start low and go high. You can't, go up and then down a number, up a number, down a number. It has to be continue climbing as you work your way up. Same thing with RPMs. So again, let's say that you're targeting about 12 pounds of boost. And hell, if you're like a lot of people, maybe this is a new combo. You think you're going to make 12, but you don't really know. So leave yourself a little cushion. Let's say if we really think we're going to shoot for 11 or 12, let's set up this table for 16. Let's give ourselves another 3 or 4 pounds of boost. Now, this is one of the big areas where it differs between what I would do for a supercharger and a turbo. Because with turbos, there's a bunch of other factors, mechanically speaking, that can cause you to get more boost than you actually were targeting on accident. And sometimes, like, where even if you've been running it and it's been consistent, suddenly you have a part defect or something goes wrong and your boost creeps way up. So different story there. That's another video. But superchargers, man, worst thing that can happen to superchargers, your belt snaps or comes off and you're just going to go to no boost. So you don't really, in almost any common bolt-on supercharger applications, you're not going to have the problem of overboost that you really need to freak out about and, add a bunch of rows here and all this other stuff. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to make the very top row 16. And you notice as soon as I hit enter, it had to kind of make that stuff fit because, again, it has to sort of stay linear where it can't climb up a number and then go back down and up and down and up and down. So it kind of did some other stuff here. And I'm not going to give myself a bunch of tuning resolution between 12 and 16 because I don't actually plan to get to 16. It's there just in case. So I'll go from 16 to 14 to 12. And then 12 is kind of where I really want to start paying attention. And honestly, with this lower amount of boost, I'm going to go ahead and just dial this thing in. I'm going to put 1 row for every pound of boost. And then a 0 row. And then below this, what we need to focus on is where are you at idle and cruise. Those are your two sort of, KPA or PSI areas that you really want to make sure you've got good tuning resolution. And honestly, so let me flip back over to KPA for a minute because I bet most of you are more familiar with looking at that since it's a default setting. So now you can see that 100 row we talked about. This is right when you're transitioning to boost. And then below it, we're going to make some changes now. So what I usually do is I do something like 90, and then 85, 80, 75, 70, something about like this. And, you could even, if you want, you could fit in a 95 row up there. So let me go ahead and shift those down a number. And so we've got 50, 40, 35, 30, 25, 20, 15. And realistically, you don't even need most of this resolution down here. So what I would really do if I was just trying to make a base map like for a first startup and I don't even know where it's going to sit because I don't know how much vacuum the cam makes, whatever, this would be a good starting point. But once you do figure out where your KPA is at idle and once you get it stable, I would actually recommend, let's say your KPA is at like 70 at idle. I would probably come in here, I'd chop off a few more of these bottom rows. So maybe I go like so let's set it up for that. Let's pretend that we found out we idle at about 70. Here's what I would do. I'm going to leave this bottom one at 15, but I'm going to jump right to 25, and then I'm going to jump right to 35, and then we're going to start doing something a little more specific. So 40, 45, 50, 55, 60, and then this is where we're going to start to get a little bit more granular. So now I'm going to go in smaller increments. So we're going to go to 64, and then we're going to go to 68, 72, 76, and then 80. So now we've got more tuning resolution right in here where we need it. And that should be good. And then honestly, you're scaling it this way, kind of in this range down here and up till we get to 100. This should give you plenty of resolution for all of your cruising, all that other stuff. Okay. So that's kind of how I would set that end of it up. The next thing I would do is I would focus on this 100 row right here. And so the way you would do this with a supercharger, this is how I always tune supercharged cars. I always kind of get idle and drivability, kind of get the basics worked out on that. And when I'm ready to start making full pulls on it, first thing I'm going to do is take the blower belt off. Engine will run just fine without the blower belt. It's not going to break anything. It's not going to freak out. It would be technically probably down on power a touch compared to what it would be if you didn't have all that blower tubing that it's trying to suck air through without a blower spinning. But you can do that just fine. And the reason I like to do that is because, again, you want to figure out how much timing and fuel does your engine want before you add the boost. Get all that stuff dialed in. Then you come back and that's kind of a reference point for you. You make adjustments based on where did it want to be naturally aspirated, and then as the boost climbs, we adjust there. So I'm going to make up some numbers here. Do not do this on your combo unless you know what it is you need to creep up on your timing and figure it out. But let's just say your car was real happy with like 32 degrees of timing up top. Again, I'm just making up a number here. And let's say that, that was all in up top. So we'll kind of start over here. So 32, probably holding 32 through most of that range, through about 5,000 RPMs, and maybe start to drop it down a touch. So we'll do like 31 and a half, 31, 30.5, 30. This is just a real quick and dirty, guys. And let's say we kind of hold 29 through there, and then we, say we just taper it down the rest of the way. So again, just kind of quick something for demonstration. But again, you should have actually been driving the car and do a pull with no boost and figure out if this is what it wants or not. Get this wherever it needs to be. Then we go up from here. So what I would always recommend we do is we copy this row, and then we start pasting up the rest of the way up, and then we make adjustments. So let me copy this entire row, and then just paste it all the way up. Okay, so now we've got a starting point, and this is where I now like to switch between the KPA view, because KPA, for some reason, my brain works better when I'm thinking about vacuum and whatever. I like KPA for the bottom of the table, and then I'll switch my view to PSI up top. But this is really easy to understand, and the other reason I'm doing this is, a long-known rule that is a base starting point that I think has probably blown up very few engines is whatever it wanted naturally aspirated, pull 1 degree of timing for every pound of boost. It is, again, a very quick and dirty rule. It is not perfect. I'm not saying that's what you should do here, and in fact, we're not going to do that. But that's usually a pretty safe starting point. It's a very generic blanket statement on any possible, supercharged application. Okay. But in more practical use, you really don't need to pull that much timing through these first few pounds of boost. And with a supercharger, obviously the thing that makes it different than a turbo is that it's belt driven, and if it's going to be like a centrifugal supercharger, I should clarify that too. So like Powerdyne, Paxton, Vortec, ProCharger, something like that. Your boost is going to climb pretty linearly with RPMs, and you have to get into the higher RPMs to get the higher boost. It just is what it is. So what you'll notice with those types of superchargers is, let's say you punch it at $3,000, it'll go up just a little bit, and you'll get your couple pounds of boost, 2, 3, 4 pounds depending on your pulley, and that's about it right when you mash on it, and then it'll slowly climb. So you can hit it pretty hard in these lower areas right here, in these first 2, 3, 4 pounds of boost, and then you need to really kind of start to bring it off after that. The other key consideration, and this is with any tuning, figure out where you make peak torque and be very careful in those particular RPM and boost ranges. And a lot of small block Ford stuff, if it's like just a real simple heads cam intake and a blower, depends on the cam obviously and other things, but usually your peak torque is going to be somewhere between like 3,700 and 4,700. Somewhere in here's your peak torque. And so what you would want to do is, especially if you were maybe doing some modifications on a dyno, go run it, just see where that RPM point is, look back at your log, figure out what your kind of boost was in that RPM range, so you can figure out exactly what cells you're in when you make peak torque, and bring those down a couple degrees kind of compared to the rest of what you're doing around it, then you're likely to have that combo live a little longer. Okay, So now that we've got this locked out, what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to leave the timing identical for one more row. So 1 pound of boost, there are no changes. Okay. Then when we get to 2 pounds of boost, we're going to make a very minor change. We're going to pull a 1/2 degree. And you can just, once you select that whole range, you can just offset, and you can just say, you know, minus 0.5. And it just lowers everything down. So it's kind of easy to do that way. Okay. And then right here, we're going to reduce timing again. And remember, this is still kind of the main 0 boost number. So now I'm gonna offset that by 1.25 less than our 0 boost number. So now at this point, what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna copy the numbers that we have here, and I'm gonna paste that up the rest of the way. Okay, and now from here on, I'm gonna just do exactly what we said. I'm gonna pull one degree of timing for every pound of boost. So starting at 4, minus 1, then we go up a row, grab to the top, minus 1, basically just keep repeating this till we have worked up towards 12. Come on, Holley, work with me. Notice it does that sometimes when you try to highlight an area, it just kind of doesn't keep going. Kind of just a weird little quirk, but okay. Almost there, guys. Bear with me. Fast forward if you want. That might be better use of your time. Maybe I'll fast forward the video and I edit it. Probably not. Okay. So that was 1 pound. And then, again, these last 2 rows up here, really the only reason we even have these is if you just make a little bit more boost than you planned on. And like I said, with a supercharger, there's very little that could go wrong that would cause you to just suddenly have some massive spike in boost. But what I'm going to do now is I'm going to take this 14 pound, go ahead and pull 2 more degrees compared to where we were at 12. So this is still kind of more reasonable, I guess, for if we actually hit 14. But I'm going to bring this one way down because this is where we're getting into a territory we just shouldn't be in for our combo. So I'm going to pull 6 degrees up at the very top, and that's just our safety net. So again, we shouldn't get there. Probably no reason to worry about it, but if we do, we've got that big safety net. So this is maybe like a good starting point. Now, the other thing I would do again, so let's say this is making peak torque at maybe 4250. So I'm going to grab these three columns, so from 4,000 to 4,500. And my guess is that that's probably going to be somewhere up here. If we're making 12 pounds on this combo, at these RPMs, we're probably going to be somewhere in the 8 to 10 range. Would just be my guess. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to grab all of these numbers right here, and I'm going to offset these by 1.25 degrees, just a little bit, nothing crazy. Sometimes you can leave it as is. Sometimes you pull more than this, but maybe 1.25 degrees, or hell, let's go 1.5 degrees. Pull 1.5 degrees out of there. And then what we want to do is we want to kind of smooth out around the edges so that we kind of can ramp some of that in. So coming from these 4,500 numbers that we just adjusted, what I'm going to do now is I'm going to go up to between 4,500 and 5,250, and I'm going to fill the row value. So it basically is blending left to right on each of these rows. So we kind of have that ramp back in. And then we need to do a little bit of smoothing over here. So I'll smooth between my 4,000 row. And I'm not going to go over as far this time. I'm just going to go to the 3,500, fill those row values. So you can see it's bringing in a lot of timing, and then it's going to kind of chill out a little bit, and then it'll go ahead and ramp the rest of it in kind of as we're getting out of that peak torque area. And then we've got a little bit of a jitter here now. So now what I'm going to do is I'm just going to kind of grab this whole range where things are a little wonky right now and just smooth selected. And that's pretty much that's pretty much it. You know, the only other consideration that I would probably give for just a starting map is way out in this territory. So, you know, in the naturally aspirated one, because we weren't dealing with any boost, you know, we had all this kind of idle area timing locked all the way to the top of the table because it's just really there for idle, and it's not that big a deal. But as you get up into this territory right here, if you really mash the pedal, you know, you might get a little bit of boost out of it right here, and it's really, really hard on your motor to lug this stuff with boost. It's not good for it anyways, but it's really not good for it under boost. So my real advice is just stay the heck out of this area. There's no reason for you to drive the car that way until you're you know, up in you know, 2,500 RPMs or so. But I would go ahead and get more aggressive here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put this at 0 timing, and I'm going to kind of make myself a window here of 0 timing all the way up to 1,000 RPMs. And then I'm going to make it a much slower transition to bring any timing in. Not that you really have any practical way to get up here with your combo, but all the way from here to 3,000, I'm going to bring that in much slower. So down in these areas, we now have a lot less timing. And then what I'm going to do is same thing here. So here we are at 0 where it's kind of locked out. But going from 0 to about 5, I'm going to have this pull way down to like 6 degrees of timing and fill the column values, and then go from 6 all the way to 0 up here. Okay, so you can see how much we really just kind of reduced that area. You know, and then we're going to work our way over. So from here to the practical area of our map, where we hit about 2,000. I'm going to fill that in, and then we're going to fill in this direction. So let's go from here to here. Okay, and then we're going to just re-smooth this top little area right in here. Okay, and get to something like that, and then we'll go ahead and smooth this area just a little bit more. Okay, it's looking a little funky, but bear with me. So now we've got kind of this jittery area as a result. Now, and again, we didn't really even focus on this timing a whole lot. And if you remember from the other video, this was an area where their factory calibrations here in the Holley need more timing, in my opinion. So you know, at this point, you need to do some kind of blending, and it might be as simple as you know, doing something like this. Like I'm seeing that I'm at 20.8 right here. I'm going to find the next closest value where it goes up and blend between the two. Fill those column values, move over 21.7. I'll blend that to right here. 22.6. 23.5. And again, you know, this isn't perfect, but you get the idea. It's smoothing some things out just a little bit. And then maybe something like that. Okay, so this area looks a lot less crappy now. Not perfect, but less crappy. And now I'm going to kind of top that off with just some more smoothing right in this area. And I don't want to dip too far because I really don't want to get into wherever my actual idle is. I really do want that to be locked. So you need to kind of know how far down you can go before you start jacking with these numbers. But you know, something about like that. And then like I did in the last video, I'm going to do a final smoothing. So past my idle RPMs, I'll go from 1,000 to the top of the table and smooth it. And again, ideally all this stuff would already be dialed in, so this is pretty janky still for this. And I'm not going to redo this one, but assuming that this was all done too, then the final step, take the whole thing, smooth selected, and you know, you should have a pretty workable timing map. and you know, it should make clean power, and it should be relatively safe in most applications. But again, guys, the key here to start all of this, you have to know what the engine will take before you put the blower belt on. If your car does not want this much timing here, it's not going to want this much timing up here. So do not just throw this at it, because right now there's a whole lot of combos out there. I can tell you right now, they don't want 20 degrees of timing up top at 14 pounds of boost. There are some heads and some combos that'll do it, but yours is very likely not to. So do not just take these numbers and plug them in and start running. You need to go through the process that I've described, and you know, work your way from there, and that should give you something pretty close. And you know, as a check and balance, one other thing I'm going to do here is I'm going to go back. Now that you've seen this, I'm going to open up another Terminator window. I'm going to open that same basic file and go back to the timing map. And now that we've kind of talked through, I want you to look at how wacky some of this is. So if they're saying at 0 boost, so right as you're transitioning, you know, out of that area, if you want this much timing, so they've got you at, you know, 22 degrees, maybe we'll call it 21. I can guarantee you at 30 pounds of boost, you do not want 11 degrees of timing. It's crazy. And you won't want it at 27 pounds either, and at 23 pounds, you're not going to want 12 degrees of timing. I mean, you see my point here is like the top of this is absolutely wacko. It doesn't make any sense at all for these kinds of boost levels. And then down here, this is so ridiculously conservative that you're just not going to make any power. I mean, there's, again, like I said in my last video, naturally aspirated, which this is kind of where you'd be. I've never seen a small block Ford that wanted less than stock timing, which was 26 total. Never seen it. And the lowest I've seen is actually one of my personal cars, and it was 28 degrees, naturally aspirated. So, you know, I'm just kind of dumbfounded here. But anyways, I'm not knocking Holley. I love this software. They've got a good product. It's just you have to pay attention to your tune. You have to make these decisions. Now, one other thing that you might consider doing, and this is me being kind of having a theoretical conversation. I've never done this, but I don't know what the Holley system will do if, let's say, again, you have like a 3-bar map sensor or something that can see these higher pressures. You don't think you're going to hit more than 12, so you scale your table where maybe the top row is only for like 12, 14, or 16 pounds of boost like we did. If for some reason you hit 17, what does it do? I don't know the answer to that. I would hope that they would just continue to use whatever your top timing number is, and it's fine. I'm guessing that's what it does, but I've seen, you know, older ECUs will reset or freak out when you achieve numbers that are greater than you've given them the opportunity to calculate. So I don't know, just a thought. So anyways, guys, I hope this helps give you some idea of kind of what I would do there. And then I'm going to make another video like this for turbos. And it'll be similar to Supercharger, but a little bit different. So good luck, guys. Good luck, Godspeed.